I still remember that electrifying moment as if it were splashed in neon across my very soul, the moment I discovered that my wife had taken my credit card without even asking, and in a single, defiant impulse, I reported it stolen right before her planned shopping spree. In those first 100 heartbeats, every hope of trust and partnership we'd built shattered into 1,000 fragments of disbelief, anger, and betrayal. Her brazen act of seizing what was mine without a word not only cut deep but ignited in me an unyielding resolve. I would no longer be a victim of thoughtless selfishness. That moment became the spark for a journey that would soon transform my life in ways I never could have foreseen. For years, I had prided myself on my financial discipline and the careful planning that went into every purchase and investment. My credit card wasn't just a means to pay bills, it was a symbol of the trust one had placed in our partnership, a small token of the life we were building together. I had always believed that our relationship was built on open communication and mutual respect. I worked long hours, saved diligently, and even sacrificed personal luxuries to ensure that our future was secure. So when I discovered that she had taken my credit card without any discussion, I felt a shock that reverberated through every part of my being. It wasn't merely the act of spending money, it was the realization that she had acted in secret, without consulting me, and had disregarded the very foundation of our shared life. I remember the day vividly. It was a sunny Saturday afternoon, and I had just returned home after a particularly grueling week at work. I found my wallet on the kitchen counter and as I flipped through the receipts, noticed unfamiliar charges that pointed directly to an expensive boutique downtown. My heart sank as I pieced it together. She had taken my credit card and used it without my knowledge. The betrayal stung, not only because of the money that was spent but because it was done without any conversation, without a hint of discussion about our finances. I felt as though the trust one had so carefully nurtured was being casually tossed aside. For the next few hours, I grappled with a whirlwind of emotions. Anger, humiliation, and a profound sense of betrayal collided inside me. I paced the living room, my thoughts oscillating between confronting her and retreating into silence. I couldn't shake the image of her nonchalantly slipping the card into her purse that morning, as if it were nothing more than a trivial convenience. Yet, to me it was far more. It was a breach of trust that undermined every effort I had made to build a secure future for us. I felt isolated and exposed, as if my financial and emotional security were no longer under my control. Unable to bear the silence, I sat down at my desk and began to document everything in my journal. Every detail mattered. The time I noticed the strange charges, the names of the stores, and even the emotional weight that pressed on my heart. I wrote feverishly, not just to vent, but to understand the deeper implications of what had happened. Was this an isolated act of thoughtlessness, or had it become a pattern in our relationship? The more I wrote, the more I realized that this incident was not just about money, it was about respect, communication, and the very core of our partnership. That evening, as the sky turned a deep shade of twilight and I sat alone with my thoughts, I felt an unexpected clarity begin to form. The pain of betrayal was searing, yet it also revealed truths I had long been too afraid to face. I recalled all the subtle signs, the secretive glances at her phone, the hushed conversations when I wasn't around, and the way she dismissed my questions about our finances. In retrospect, these moments had been warning signals, tiny cracks in a foundation I had assumed was solid. Now, with those cracks laid bare, I understood that I needed to take decisive action, not out of vengeance, but to reclaim my self-worth and to ensure that I would never again be sidelined in my own life. I made a promise to myself that night. I would confront this breach of trust head-on, and I would do so in a way that was both strategic and irrevocable. I realized that if I were to protect my future, my financial security and my sense of self, I had to take control of the situation. The next morning, before the sun had fully risen, I picked up the phone and reported my credit card stolen. I knew that this action would not only stop further unauthorized charges but also force a conversation about respect and trust that had been long overdue. The decision wasn't made in anger alone. It was a calculated step toward reclaiming what was mine. I understood that the act of reporting the card stolen was a clear message. I would not stand idly by while my trust was betrayed. That pivotal moment marked the beginning of a transformation, a journey that would force me to re-examine everything about my identity, my values, and my vision for the future. I knew that the road ahead would be fraught with challenges, both emotional and practical, but I also recognized that I had the strength to rebuild. I resolved that this incident would not define me as a failure or a victim, but rather as someone who had the courage to confront betrayal and to take decisive action. As I closed my journal and looked out the window at the quiet dawn, a sense of determination settled over me. The humiliation I had felt was now a spark, igniting a fierce resolve to create a future where trust, respect, and open communication were not just ideals, but the very bedrock of my relationships. I was ready to face whatever came next, to rebuild my financial stability, and to restore my sense of self that had been shaken by that single fateful act. With a steady breath and a heart full of resolve, I stepped into the new day, determined to reclaim my worth and to transform the betrayal into the fuel for my resurgence. In the days and weeks following that shattering night, I found myself swept up in a whirlwind of emotions that seemed to transform every minute into both agony and a fierce call to action. The shock of discovering that my wife had taken my credit card without even asking still haunted me, but it was the decision I made in response, the act of reporting it stolen just before her shopping trip, that set in motion a journey I never could have predicted. At first I was paralyzed by disbelief. I replayed the moment over and over in my mind, the subtle slip of the card into her purse, the casual way she tucked it away as if it were nothing, and the eerie silence that followed when I realized the unauthorized charges on my statement. It felt like a betrayal of the deepest kind, an infringement not just on my finances, but on the trust that I believed was the foundation of our marriage. For several nights I barely slept. I found myself pacing our dimly lit living room, every tick of the clock accentuating my mounting despair. I felt betrayed by the person I loved, yet there was also an inexplicable surge of resolve. I knew that if I allowed that violation of trust to go unanswered, it would only fester and define me as a victim. I needed to reclaim control, both over my finances and over my life. So, after a stormy night of restless thoughts, I resolved to act decisively. I called the bank to report the card stolen, canceling it immediately so no further damage could be done. In that moment, my trembling hands on the phone symbolized more than financial prudence. They were a declaration that I would no longer be passive in the face of betrayal. The process of reporting the theft was methodical and excruciatingly slow. I had to verify every detail, answer endless security questions, and provide proof of the unauthorized transactions. As I recounted the events to the bank representative, I felt a mix of anger and a kind of grim satisfaction. Each piece of information I relayed was a reminder that my trust had been violated, but it was also a step toward protecting what I had worked so hard to build. I recorded the conversation, documenting every detail to ensure I had a paper trail, not just for my own records but as evidence should I need to confront the issue later in a legal setting. The bank assured me that the fraudulent charges would be reversed, and while that provided temporary relief, the emotional toll was still heavy. With my credit card now canceled and a new one ordered in its place, I sat down to reflect on what had transpired. I reopened my journal, the same one in which I had poured out my raw emotions after the discovery, and began to write feverishly again. I detailed the sequence of events, not just as a record but as a way to process the betrayal. Every line I wrote was a cathartic release, words that flowed with both bitterness and a budding determination. I recalled the countless hours I had spent carefully budgeting and planning for our future, the sacrifices made in hopes of mutual prosperity, and the deep sense of betrayal that had seeped into every corner of my life that evening. In those pages, I started to map out not only my feelings but also the steps I would take to rebuild my financial security and, more importantly, my self-respect. That period of introspection became a turning point. I realized that I needed to dig deeper into my own psyche. I questioned every silent moment of doubt that I had ignored, every furtive glance she'd given when I wasn't looking. I began to understand that her action was not a one-off mistake. It was part of a pattern of behavior that I had perhaps subconsciously overlooked. This painful self-reflection was harrowing, yet it also served as a catalyst for my personal growth. I reached out to a trusted friend, a mentor from my early career, who had always encouraged me to stand up for myself. In long, honest conversations over coffee, I recounted my experience and he listened without judgment. His words were simple yet profound: you have to take control of your story. Don't let someone else's mistakes define your future. That conversation resonated with me deeply and reinforced my resolve to reclaim every part of my life that had been tarnished by betrayal. Simultaneously, I began to scrutinize the dynamics of our relationship. I wondered how I could have been so blindsided. I reflected on the times when she would casually check her phone or when she'd abruptly change the subject whenever I asked about our finances. In hindsight, those subtle signs now seemed glaringly obvious. I pored over old text messages and emails, searching for hints of her secret behavior. Each discovery was painful, but it also validated the choices I had made that night when I reported the card stolen. I wasn't overreacting, I was protecting myself. The evidence, once hidden in plain sight, now served as a mirror, reflecting the reality I had been too afraid to see. Driven by a need for closure, I decided to confront her about it later that week. I rehearsed what I would say countless times in my head. I wasn't sure if I wanted to hear her reasons or if I even cared anymore, but I knew that I needed to express my feelings, to let her know the impact of her actions. When we finally met in our living room, the tension was palpable. I asked her calmly, "Why did you take my card without asking?" Her response was evasive, a tangle of excuses and half-truths that did nothing to soothe the raw hurt inside me. I listened, but each word felt like another nail in the coffin of the trust we once had. That confrontation didn't yield answers, it only deepened the chasm between us. I realized then that while I could seek explanations, I would never be able to undo the betrayal. What mattered now was my decision to stand on my own. In the days that followed, I devoted myself to reclaiming not just my financial independence but also the self-respect that had been eroded by years of unchallenged sacrifices. I took stock of my career, my personal achievements, and the dreams I had once shelved in the name of compromise. I began updating my resume and exploring opportunities that promised not only better pay but also a healthier, more respectful work environment. I networked with former colleagues, attended industry events, and even reached out to recruiters who recognized the value of experience and dedication. Every conversation, every new lead, became a stepping stone toward a future where I would no longer be defined by someone else's thoughtless actions. My journey was not just professional, it was deeply personal as well. I enrolled in a personal finance course to learn more about securing my assets and planning for a future that was completely my own. I met with financial planners who helped me reevaluate my spending, savings, and investment strategies. I realized that while the theft had been a breach of trust, it also forced me to take a hard look at my own financial habits. I began to set clear boundaries, ensuring that every financial decision was made with my long-term security in mind. I created a budget that was stricter, more mindful of my priorities, and I set up an emergency fund that was entirely separate from any joint accounts. This meticulous attention to my finances not only provided a sense of security but also helped rebuild my self-confidence. Each small success reinforcing the belief that I was capable of taking control of my own destiny. Emotionally, the process was equally grueling. I found solace in therapy sessions where I unpacked the layers of hurt and betrayal that had accumulated over the years. My therapist helped me see that my pain was valid, that every tear and every sleepless night was a testament to the depth of my commitment. We worked through the feelings of inadequacy and the self-doubt that had crept in silently over time. Gradually, I began to rebuild my self-esteem, learning that my worth was not tied to another's actions but to my own resilience and hard work. Each session, each breakthrough in understanding, added another piece to the puzzle of my new identity. A man who was unafraid to confront the past and determined to build a future based solely on his own terms. During this period of reconstruction, I also sought refuge in creative expression. I returned to writing, a passion I had long neglected in the hustle of daily life. Late at night, I would sit at my desk and pour out my emotions onto paper. Poignant reflections on betrayal, loss, and the slowly dawning hope of a reborn self. I began to share some of these writings on a private blog, where a small community of readers resonated with my vulnerability and offered words of encouragement. The act of putting my pain into words was both cathartic and empowering, a way to transform raw, searing emotion into a narrative of strength and perseverance. I discovered that in sharing my story, I was not only healing myself but also inspiring others who had faced similar betrayals to reclaim their own power. Every day, my routine became a carefully balanced dance between the professional and the personal. Mornings were dedicated to exercise, a series of long runs through quiet streets that allowed me to clear my mind and ground my thoughts. The rhythmic pounding of my feet on pavement was a meditation, a physical manifestation of my internal drive. Afternoons were consumed by work and meetings, where every conversation and decision was approached with a newfound clarity. Evenings were reserved for introspection, therapy, and creative pursuits, a time when I allowed my emotions to surface and be transformed into actionable insights. This rigorous routine was exhausting at times, but it was also liberating. Each day a step closer to a future where I defined my own worth. As the weeks melded into months, the collective impact of these efforts began to show tangible results. My professional reputation steadily recovered. Colleagues who had once dismissed my ideas now looked to me for leadership and insight. The projects I led began to yield impressive results, and I received accolades that validated the hard work and dedication I had poured into every endeavor. Slowly, I started to see the business side of my life transform. A metamorphosis where every successful meeting and every upward trend in the financial reports was a vindication of my capabilities. The sense of empowerment was overwhelming, and I felt an unshakable certainty that I was on the right path. This period of intense transformation also led me to reevaluate the very foundation of my relationships. I began to distance myself from those who had contributed to the toxic dynamics that had allowed such betrayal to occur. I reconnected with friends and mentors who had always believed in me, those whose support was unconditional and whose wisdom reminded me that my worth was inherent. I discovered that the journey to self-reclamation was not one that had to be walked alone, that there were countless others who had risen above similar challenges, and that by sharing our stories, we could inspire a collective resurgence of hope and strength. Slowly, I also started to see a subtle shift in the attitudes of the people around me. The same individuals who had once looked at me with condescension or indifference were beginning to approach me with cautious respect. In quiet conversations over lunch or in hushed tones during meetings, I sensed that my transformation was acknowledged. Some colleagues, who had silently witnessed the erosion of my value, now expressed admiration for the strength I had shown in reclaiming my identity. Their newfound respect was not just a personal victory, it was a powerful reminder that success is built on perseverance and authenticity. In every step of this arduous journey, I began to weave together the threads of my professional, financial, and personal reinvention into a tapestry that was uniquely mine. I drafted a detailed roadmap for my future, outlining new goals and ambitions that were informed by both my past experiences and my newfound vision. I began exploring opportunities for further education, attending workshops and seminars that challenged me to think differently and to innovate beyond conventional boundaries. Every new goal, every fresh challenge, was a testament to the fact that I was no longer defined by the narrow judgments of the past, but by the limitless possibilities of the future. In the midst of these transformative months, I found solace in moments of quiet reflection. Sitting by the window as dusk turned the sky into a canvas of deep blues and purples, I would let my thoughts wander. In those moments, I would reflect on the path that had brought me here, the countless sacrifices, the painful betrayals, and the unyielding determination to reclaim what was rightfully mine. I began to appreciate that every setback, every moment of despair, had been a necessary passage on the road to self-discovery. The pain, while still raw, had slowly been transmuted into a source of strength, a reservoir of resilience that I could draw upon in times of uncertainty. As I continued to navigate this complex web of recovery, I also made a conscious effort to redefine what success meant to me. No longer would I measure my worth solely by external validations or the opinions of those who had once belittled me. I started to look inward, recognizing that true success was an internal state, a quiet confidence that came from knowing you had overcome even the darkest moments of betrayal. I began to celebrate every small victory, every positive shift in my mindset, as a triumph over the past. I learned to laugh again, to find joy in the simple things. A warm cup of coffee on a crisp morning, a heartfelt conversation with a friend, the satisfaction of a job well done. These moments, though seemingly insignificant, gradually stitched together a new fabric of my identity, a fabric that was resilient, authentic, and unmistakably mine. In the course of those transformative months, I also reached out to support groups and community gatherings where others shared their stories of overcoming personal and professional betrayals. The collective experience of these meetings, filled with raw honesty and mutual encouragement, served as a powerful reminder that I was not alone. I heard accounts of similar struggles, of the bitter sting of being undervalued, and of the triumphant resurgence that followed when individuals chose to reclaim their lives. These shared narratives resonated deeply with me and provided an additional layer of strength. They reinforced the idea that my journey was part of a larger tapestry of human resilience. Each story, each experience, a thread woven into a collective celebration of survival and rebirth. Every conversation, every encounter with someone who had faced similar hardships, added new dimensions to my understanding of strength and perseverance. I began to see that my experience, painful as it was, had given me a unique perspective, one that allowed me to empathize with others and to mentor them through their own battles. I became a quiet force of inspiration, a living testament to the fact that even when you are cast aside and told you're not good enough, you can rise from the ashes and build something extraordinary. This realization ignited in me a desire to not only reclaim my own life but to help others do the same. I started volunteering at local organizations that focused on empowerment and resilience, sharing my journey with those who felt lost or diminished by their own betrayals. In doing so, I discovered that true healing is not a solitary endeavor. It is a communal process that thrives on the sharing of hope, wisdom, and the unyielding belief in one's own potential. As the days grew longer and the seasons began to change, I started to feel the tangible rewards of my hard work and determination. My career began to flourish in ways I had only dared to imagine. I was entrusted with high-profile projects, my input was sought after in critical strategic meetings, and slowly but surely, the very people who had once mocked my efforts began to recognize my contributions. The turnaround was profound, a metamorphosis that left no doubt. I was no longer defined by the betrayals of the past. Instead, I was a man reborn, a man who had transformed pain into power and whose accomplishments now stood as a monument to his resilience. With every new project, every accolade, I felt the sting of that past humiliation recede into the background, replaced by the brilliant glow of success and self-assurance. I began to draft a new vision for my future, one that was unencumbered by the bitterness of betrayal and fueled solely by my own dreams and ambitions. I set ambitious goals for further career advancement, meticulously planning each step to ensure that my progress was steady and sustainable. I reevaluated my financial strategies, diversifying my investments and setting up a robust system to protect my assets. Every decision, every calculated risk, was made with the unwavering conviction that my destiny was mine to shape. In quiet, introspective moments, while sitting by my window watching the sunset transform the sky into a canvas of vibrant colors, I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude for the journey I had undergone. The darkness of betrayal had given way to a light that was brighter and more enduring than I ever imagined. I realized that every challenge I had faced had forged within me an unbreakable spirit, a spirit that would continue to guide me through even the toughest of times. The scars I bore were not marks of defeat, but emblems of survival, each one a reminder that I had the power to overcome, rebuild, and thrive. Now, as I stand on the precipice of a future filled with promise and potential, I know that the journey is far from over. Every day is a new opportunity to refine my vision, to push the boundaries of what I can achieve, and to inspire others with the story of my resilience. The path ahead is illuminated by the lessons of the past, a past that once threatened to define me but now serves as the foundation for my remarkable comeback. I am determined to continue building on the legacy of strength and perseverance that I have forged, knowing that the challenges of yesterday are the stepping stones to a future that is entirely my own. That fateful morning, when I finally sat down in the quiet calm of my office with the weight of a year's worth of transformation behind me, I realized that every setback, every bitter remark, had led me inexorably to this moment, a moment when I was in complete control of my destiny. The memory of my wife's cold command, "Get a better job," had haunted me for months, a constant echo of disappointment. But today, as I reviewed the final details of a new contract and the glowing emails that confirmed our latest business milestone, I felt an overwhelming sense of vindication. I had not only found a better job for myself, but I had also taken the ultimate step. I had hired her ex-boss. This move wasn't made out of spite alone. It was the culmination of a journey where I rebuilt my life, my career, and my self-worth from the shattered remnants of betrayal. In the months that followed her harsh dismissal of my abilities, I channeled every ounce of hurt into a relentless drive for success. I dove headfirst into my work, leveraging every opportunity to prove that the same passion and intelligence I had long nurtured was more than enough to propel me into a future of abundance and respect. Late nights in the office became my norm as I immersed myself in complex projects and innovative strategies. I refused to let her call me inadequate. Instead, I took every moment of criticism as a challenge to outdo myself. When the idea of hiring her ex-boss first entered my mind, it came as a revelation, a spark of brilliance born out of bitter irony. I remembered how he had once been the guiding force behind the very department that I had helped build, and how his leadership had been both visionary and supportive. His dismissal from her company had not been by choice, and his reputation for integrity and smart decision-making had only grown over time. I realized that if I could secure him as a mentor and business partner, it would be a clear message to everyone. My career was now mine to shape, and I was no longer bound by her limitations or her petty demands. I began by discreetly reaching out to him, initially via email, then through a series of informal meetings over coffee. Each conversation was electric, filled with mutual respect and the recognition of shared values. He confided in me about the frustrations he had endured, about how his visionary ideas had been stifled by a culture that rewarded conformity over innovation. In his words, I found a reflection of my own journey, a longing for an environment where talent was recognized for what it truly was. Our discussions spanned hours, covering everything from emerging industry trends to personal philosophies on leadership. With every meeting, The idea of bringing him into my fold evolved from a mere possibility to an undeniable opportunity. Parallel to these efforts, I worked tirelessly to upgrade my own professional profile. I enrolled in advanced management courses, attended seminars on cutting-edge business strategies, and even began speaking at industry events. Every step I took was a deliberate effort to position myself not just as someone who had been underestimated, but as a leader capable of steering a company to new heights. My newfound confidence was palpable, in board meetings and casual conversations, and in the decisive way I handled each challenge that came my way. I was determined to show that my abilities were not only intact, but that they had grown exponentially from the crucible of adversity I had endured. As weeks turned into months, my plan began to take shape with increasing clarity. I worked with my financial advisors to restructure our business operations, ensuring that every investment and every project reflected my vision for a sustainable, innovative future. I drew up detailed proposals outlining the strategic direction I envisioned for our company, one where every decision was data-driven and every innovation celebrated. With the support of a trusted network of colleagues, I began to build a compelling case for my leadership, a case that would ultimately culminate in a major restructuring of our department. I could feel the tide turning, and as the evidence of my hard work and dedication began to accumulate, the whispers of doubt that had once haunted me started to fade into silence. The day finally came when I sat down with the board of directors to present my comprehensive plan. In that meeting, I laid out every detail of my vision for a revitalized future, one that integrated my innovative strategies with the invaluable insights of her ex-boss, who by now had agreed to join as a senior advisor. I showed them the clear gap between our current performance and our potential, underscored by meticulously prepared financial reports, market analyses, and a roadmap for long-term growth. I spoke with a conviction that left no room for doubt. I was ready to lead, and I had the plan to prove it. The board's reaction was a mix of cautious optimism and genuine admiration. They recognized that my approach was not merely reactive but strategically sound, built on a foundation of relentless hard work and a clear, unyielding vision for the future. In that moment, I knew that the tables had turned. The very people who had once dismissed me were now entrusting me with the future of the company, and my role was set to expand beyond anything I had previously imagined. Beyond the boardroom, the personal transformation that had begun to take root was now blossoming into a renewed sense of identity and purpose. The months following that critical family reunion had been marked by both triumph and introspection. I had learned that the most painful betrayals could become the catalyst for profound personal growth. I embraced therapy and long, solitary walks that allowed me to reflect deeply on my journey, each step a quiet affirmation that I was moving forward, leaving the sting of past rejections far behind. My journal became a cherished chronicle of my evolution, each entry filled with raw honesty about my struggles and the quiet victories that followed. In these reflections, I began to see that my worth was not defined by the shallow opinions of others, but by the strength I had found within myself through every setback and every hard-fought battle. My personal relationships, too, began to realign in ways that enriched my life. I reconnected with old friends, those who had always seen the true me, and forged new bonds with people who valued authenticity over pretense. We shared our stories, laughed over memories of less complicated times, and supported one another in the pursuit of our dreams. These genuine connections were a constant reminder that I was not alone in my struggles. Many had walked similar paths and emerged stronger. The sense of community and mutual support added a rich layer of meaning to my journey. It was a shared narrative of resilience that inspired me to push forward even when the road was steep and uncertain. In parallel with the personal and professional milestones, I continued to cultivate a strong sense of financial security. I reviewed and restructured my investments with a keen eye, ensuring that every decision was aligned with my long-term vision for growth and stability. I diversified my portfolio, took calculated risks, and worked closely with advisors to optimize my assets. Each new financial report, each incremental gain was not just a number, it was a testament to my determination to rebuild and protect what was mine. The financial independence I achieved became a source of profound empowerment, allowing me to make decisions based on my own values rather than on the whims of those who had once underestimated me. As the months progressed, the culmination of my efforts began to take on a life of its own. The integration of her ex-boss into our business strategy was a masterstroke, a merging of two forces that had once been in opposition but now complemented each other perfectly. His insights, honed by years of experience and tempered by his own disappointments, meshed seamlessly with my innovative ideas and relentless drive. Together, we began to implement transformative changes that revitalized our department, improved our operational efficiency, and propelled the company into new markets. Every decision was data-driven, every strategy meticulously planned, and the results were nothing short of remarkable. The turnaround was not just a professional achievement, it was a vindication of my vision and a clear repudiation of the doubts and dismissals that had once haunted me. I found that the very act of taking control, of reclaiming my credit, of confronting betrayal head-on, had an enduring impact on every aspect of my life. It reshaped my worldview, instilling in me an unshakable belief in the power of perseverance. I began to see challenges not as insurmountable obstacles, but as opportunities for growth and reinvention. The lessons I learned from that painful experience, about trust, about sacrifice, and about the importance of self-respect, became the cornerstones of my new philosophy. I embraced the idea that success is not defined by external validation but by the relentless pursuit of one's own vision, no matter how many setbacks you face along the way. In the quiet hours of many late evenings as I sat at my desk reviewing progress reports and jotting down new ideas, I felt a profound sense of satisfaction. The journey that had begun with that fateful moment of betrayal had led me to a place where I was no longer a victim but a victor. A man who had turned humiliation into a stepping stone toward an extraordinary future. I was not just rebuilding my career or reclaiming my financial stability, I was redefining my entire identity. I had transformed every harsh word, every act of disrespect, into a driving force that propelled me forward, shaping a legacy that would stand as a testament to the indomitable power of resilience and self-belief. As I continue to forge ahead, every decision I make is a declaration of independence, a refusal to let the judgments of the past dictate my future. I have learned that the most painful experiences can serve as the fertile ground from which greatness grows. My journey, with all its twists and turns, has taught me that success is not a destination but a continuous process of reinvention. Each challenge, each victory, no matter how small, contributes to the mosaic of a life that is uniquely mine. A life built on hard work, unyielding determination, and an unwavering commitment to my own dreams. Now, as I stand on the threshold of a future brimming with possibilities, I am filled with an unshakable resolve. I have reclaimed my identity, rebuilt my career, and forged a financial legacy that is a direct result of my perseverance. The scars of betrayal still mark my past, but they serve as powerful reminders of my capacity to overcome. Every step I take is fueled by the lessons learned from my darkest days, lessons that have transformed me into a leader, an innovator, and a beacon of hope for anyone who has ever been told they were not good enough. I look forward with a renewed sense of purpose, knowing that the road ahead will continue to test me, but also that I now have the strength to rise to every challenge. With each new project, every innovative idea, and each strategic decision, I am writing the next chapter of my story, a story defined not by the betrayals of the past but by the limitless potential of the future. My destiny is no longer shaped by the dismissive words of others but by my own unyielding resolve. I am ready to step into tomorrow with confidence, to build on the legacy I have created, and to inspire others to reclaim their own worth, one courageous, determined step at a time.